Yeah,
Call this meeting of the Radford Township Board of Trustees to order.
so there.
Clerk Sanders, please take the roll.
Trustee Jackson? Here. Trustee Taylor? Here. Trustee Reese?
Here.
Trustee King?
Here.
Clerk Sanders, here. Treasurer Kavanaugh? Here. Supervisor McCray?
Here. Quorum is present. Purpose of this meeting is to give an update on the Rec and Wellness Center. We haven't done this for a while. We have some photographs and we have some additions, so we figured it was time to come in and bring you up to speed. So, right there. Oops.
Actually, I'm going to turn it over to Finance Director, Central Operations Director, Conrad, that's going to kind of go over the financial piece of it.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Before you is the dashboard report that was put together between us and Clever and Real Point. So this should look somewhat familiar. They've been doing this on a quarterly basis. Our budget continues to be right in line with what we expected it to be. And I think most importantly, based off of where the funds that we've already spent and the commitments that we've already made through contracts, we still have a owner contingency and unallocated reserves of just over $2 million, so almost 10% of the project. So we are in a very healthy position financially moving forward, and that's what that chart at the top is showing you, is just where we're at with the budget. As you know, we're still just in the middle of construction through the end of this year. The rest of the document is showing you what the plans are for the next 3 months, including February, which is now mostly over, fair enough. And the backside is photos that have been provided to us by Frank Ewald and Sons of the current state of the construction project itself. One of the things that we meet with Plant Moran every other week, and then in the off weeks, we meet with Frank Rewald and HED, so there's a lot of meetings that take place, and one of the things that we've been discussing at the last couple is that it probably, once we get through the mud pit that it's going to be over there right now, it really would be a great time for members of the board to come through and see it, because you can, at this point, all the flooring is in, you can walk upstairs and everything else, so you get a real sense of the space right now. So I think that is something we'll be reaching out to try to coordinate once it's a little less wintry, slushy, muddy mess.
Yes.
So that's it on my side of things.
Do you have any questions on the financial piece? Okay, so the one piece that we wanted to bring before you today is both in the packet that I gave to you as well as on the front here. We've been talking over the past and a lot of comments from residents on, wanting to have a pool at this site. We don't have a water element except for the whirlpool area. So we really tried to be creative on where we were at with our budget, what could we offer to be able to give an added value to sell those memberships and to be able to give that. And one of the pieces that came forward was to add a splash pad element that would be for the Recreation and Wellness Center, specifically in members. So we were able to come up with this splash pad element that fits within the budget that we already have. So on both this big picture here that's from Vortex, this shows you all of the pieces that would be included in this site. In the front part of it, it gives you the diagram of where the front lawn was going to be right off of where that partner space was. That is the area that would be changed into the splash pad as you come into the facility or come into that front part of the facility. And this system would be a recirculating system. So we would be saving on water costs. We all know that water costs are going up. So by creating this recirculating system, it would be going in, the water would be treated, and then, obviously recirculated on the splash pad. So once again, that's within the allocated budget that we already have for this. And we think it would be a great added element to be able to sell for the Recreation Center.
And just to kind of add on to that too, obviously there's been a lot of discussion about the water elements at the site. And the huge benefit of a splash pad versus a traditional pool is all the operational maintenance costs. Not only do we see scenarios right now that places that have full-blown pools, they can't staff them It's incredibly difficult to find lifeguards right now, and you have to have a lifeguard at all times. The maintenance and upkeep of that is incredibly expensive. Where splash pads we see are very, very popular. We see that everywhere we go, and it doesn't have anywhere near that same level of maintenance or operating cost.
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I guess Teresa, will this splash pad be on the same, let's say, I guess schedule as the one at Handy Park?
The hours will be pretty similar.
Okay.
So, but the difference between it would be, this would be with your membership package, whereas the one at Handy Park is still open to the, general public.
Right, and would there be improvements because Handy Park has had issues with pressure, water pressure and other issues? I'm not sure as to all the issues they had, but I know I've heard through the grapevine that, there are times with the water pressure and people do complain, but they'll complain anyway, but is there going to be a different, is it something that you could have done at the wellness center that wasn't done at Handy Park in order to have no pressure issues?
To mine, I'm not aware of any pressure issues down at Handy Park with any of the splash pad.
Okay.
So, that hasn't been brought to my attention. It runs nonstop, so.
Okay. So it
The
might be
difference
that-
between that one is it's an older splash pad and that one is a drain to waste. So
Okay.
actually, we utilize the water and it just goes right out. Where this one would actually be recirculated
Okay.
in and treated and then back. And I said, we're going to have the cleanest water in the system ever because the amount of new things that they have. That splash pad down at Handy Park is, 15 plus years old?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so.
Okay.
18? 18. Oh, there's Mike back there. I didn't notice him.
Comments from the peanut gallery back there.
Yes. So I'm not aware of
Okay.
any water issues
Okay.
there. And we adjust pressure every year down there too. It's the same thing with here. We do have to follow, health department regulation. So because it's a recirculating system that will print reports that we have to send off. 2 of my staff members are actually going next month to get trained for both this system for a pool system and as well as something like this. So that way they'll be trained as an AFO or aquatic facility operator license.
Okay, all right.
To-
Sorry.
Trustee Taylor.
You say this is a members-only feature. How do you keep community members from just pulling up and dropping their kids off to use it?
Yeah, so it will be gated.
Because they didn't show that in the drawing.
Correct, yeah. So it will be gated. The gate will not be locked or anything, because if not, we'd have to have separate swipes, separate everything. It's right off the side of the building. It has cameras that will be added as well. So if you think of it, when some people come into their rec centers or whatever, they have to get a wristband a lot of times, if they're doing specific parties, things like that. So members will still be have to come into the rec center and scan their membership card in, and then say who they have with them, and they'll get the membership bracelet. So they have to come in, they'll get them, and then they're able to go to the splash pad. So all of the members will be identified for that daily bracelet. Our staff will be walking the site. It will be part of their routines that they go out, check, as well as the front desk staff actually have cameras. So if they start to see anybody that's out there that's not a member or have the
So there's some
proper.
supervision of the site
Correct.
as well while it's in use.
Correct.
And it'll just obviously correspond with our rec cent and our hours as well.
Yeah.
Not just something you use on a hot day, but it's going to be a feature
Yep.
available while the rec center's open.
Correct,
Which
yep.
makes sense.
And we're still finalizing all the details of how packages will work. George is really good. We've been talking about, having it where from 10 to 11 a.m., some of our members can rent it as, a party time. And then from 11 to, 7, it's going to be just open for any general members. And then from 7 to 8, people can rent it for another party. So that way, if people want to rent it as a member, they're able to do that as well. But the majority of that time will be open for our members that are part of the rec center.
So Chair,
Oh, Trustee Jackson.
any idea what the rental cost would be? We haven't thought about that yet.
For the facility?
No, if somebody wanted to rent the splash pad for a private party.
So we're still working on that. So we're finalizing all of our numbers. We met again today with Supervisor McCray and Director Bonrick on the actual membership for the overall recreation center. So we're just finalizing a couple and tweaking some of those numbers based off of what we had presented 2 years ago when we brought it forward. But we are working now on kind of dialing that down and doing rentals for rooms, rentals for like parties, for the splash pad. So we'll have that all incorporated when we bring it to you as well.
And we're planning to bring that to you in April.
Are we paying for this with savings from other areas?
Correct.
Yes.
Do you know what the cost is right now?
For the splash pad itself, so it's a whole process, so,
As we keep finding out.
yeah, so, the splash pad itself is around 450,000, but you have to have like an underground detention, the site, itself has to be done, so I think it's a little bit around 920,000.
And some of those savings have come just from other cost savings that have happened in the project already.
Yeah, I was noticing.
Yeah, and some of it's coming from like changes. This space in particular, which is going to be extremely heavily landscaped space, and it'll still be like receiving money there. So most of it was made up from that.
Yeah, and I know it seems like a lot, but even when we did some background on what pools cost, things like that, we wouldn't even be able to touch
compared
putting
to
a pool in there.
No.
As well as, so we were really trying to find something for our residents and for those that are members of our rec center and what else can we provide for families. We know that the spa and the whirlpool area are going to be tailored more towards adults. So we were trying to figure out with these savings, what can we do to provide something extra for our families that are here? And this made the most sense where it doesn't have to be staffed by lifeguards constantly. It's not something that we're worried about, okay, if we have lifeguards that call in, now we can't open it. You know, we'll be able to run that. It literally is set on a timer, pretty much like the other one. So if we say the hours are from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., so as soon as somebody touches the activator, when they're in there, it jumps on, it goes through their cycle, it goes off again. The benefit with this system as well is there is new technology that it's kind of like a rain diverter. So it goes into the system when it rains, and if it's storming, we can automatically click it off from inside the rec center. So that way all of the storm water will go in and we're not storing that somewhere else and putting it to the sanitary. So they've had a lot of technologies with this. And like I said, the upkeep with like the chlorine and all of the stuff there is minimal compared to what it would be just to do like an old drained away system.
Through the chair.
Trustee King.
How does this splash pad compare in the size compared to Handy Park?
It's pretty similar. It's about 50 by 50. We did add some extra concrete for the splash zone or the not splash zone off of the sides, just to give it, because we're closer to the building and just as people are walking by sidewalks, we don't want anything splashing over to that. So we did an extra set for that, and then as well as some lawn area, so that way if people want to sit out there as they're watching their kids and stuff like that, they would not have to be on the outside of the fence watching
That's
their
what I
kids,
was
they'd be on the inside.
So there's lawn area going around it on the inside for the adults to sit and supervise their kids?
Yeah, we're finalizing that part of the design as long as everything's okay here, just to make sure that, you know, there's an area that parents can sit and not, you know, I don't want parents sitting on the outside and then finding Johnny needed some help and have to run around and go through.
Right.
To the chair.
Trustee Reed.
So it's great that it's very like, it sounds like it's very economical in running and maintaining it. Do you know, like, if something were to break, is it a specialized thing where only the vendor providing it can actually do the maintenance, or is it?
Usually, yes.
Okay.
Because you're purchasing their system, and a lot of these are sole source, so they, you know, have specific parts to them. Now, we have used, this is the same vendor that we use down at Handy Park, and I have not had an issue in the 18 years that we've been there. If something breaks or if something needs to be done, they are very efficient on coming out and doing that, so.
So there's no like concerns about, you know, yeah, it's an 8-year life cycle, then that whole retention system needs to get this big kind of every decade renovation type thing from them, or?
No, I mean, there's, I've talked to another director, a friend of mine that is in St. Clair Shores, and they've had their recirculation system since 2007.
Okay.
So I know that it's very common. Novi just put one in. The Jessica's splash pad, they're using a recirculating system out in Novi as well. So Vortex has done, systems all over, and they've been great to work with. I've not had a concern with them at all.
And then just one final question, because this is coming out of the unallocated reserves. Is that where that kind of savings gets? Okay, great. That's all.
And some of the site work, just wanted to clarify, some of that site work too that has to be done. I know that there are other things that Frank Grewald and Sons are working with us too, that they have like set aside, wintry conditions. They set aside a certain allocation for those. We've been very good at not having to utilize those, so those funds will come back to us as well that aren't even included in here.
Great.
To the chair.
Treasurer Kavanaugh.
This question is for Adam. With all the money savings that we're getting through different aspects of this, is there any of that money being set aside for when we have to subsidize for memberships that have to climb and is there?
Well, none of the money right now from the initial 23.1 million is set aside for that. However, when the project is complete, that's a conversation we'll need to definitely have. However, there is an additional $1.5 million outside of this budget, right, that the board has already set aside to help offset operational costs. So the question will probably be at that point, do we want to reduce that number and backfill it with these extra funds, right? And then that money you could reallocate to something else.
Okay,
So we'll know more about that as we get, much closer to the completion date.
okay, all right, as long as it's in the forefront.
Absolutely.
That's it, thank you.
Other questions from the board? Well, I think that when you guys can get in there, you're going to be pretty impressed with what's there. There's been a lot of work that's been put in this by a lot of people over a couple of years or so. And keeping in mind the budget and what needs to be done to put a quality facility together. And everybody's worked real hard. Teresa's been leading the charge, doing a great job. So you can thank her when you go over there and see how great it is, or if you don't like something, you can call her and tell her, why did you do this? So, and please, I encourage you to do both. So if there's no other questions, anybody? Okay, this meeting's adjourned. We'll reconvene at 6:30.
Thank you.